So as Julie said, my name is Claypool, and I am the director of the Illinois Route 66 Scenic Byway. This is a non-traditional speaking engagement for me. So I typically am speaking in front of roadies and tourism directors, and all we're talking about is Route 66, how it started, where how we got to where we are now. I'll give you just a little bit of backstory about myself and how I landed at the Byway, and how a lot of what I learned prior to the Byway doesn't really carry over to my job at the Byway. So I had been in the restaurant field for years and finally got to the point where I couldn't do it anymore, and that was in early 2000. So I started as a junior account executive at a ad agency here in town, GM Anderson. I knew nothing about marketing, nothing about advertising, but I quickly learned, that entire world. And I was there for about 4 or 5 years, slowly left there, went over to the cathedral downtown, and I was in charge of marketing, advertising, grant writing, fundraising, and eventually took over all the financing. In 2016, I ended up leaving there and I started at the Illinois Association of Park Districts. So this was an organization that kind of oversees all the park districts in Illinois, and I was their director of marketing and communications, as well as fund development. Very rigid, very strict day-to-day operations there, and it just wasn't working for my life. I had 3 girls, I was single, and one of my girlfriends forwarded me something on LinkedIn about this job at the Byway, and I'm reading it, I'm like, this doesn't even sound like a real job. Like all the qualifications I had, right? They wanted someone that had finance and grant writing and communications, but I'm like, I don't even know what this Scenic Byway is. Like, I knew what Route 66 is, probably a lot of you, just, it's a road, right? So I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna give it a chance, and ended up making through several rounds of interviewing, and my final interview to the board, I had 15 minutes to explain to them what I would do with the Byway when I took it over. And I spent 15 minutes explaining to them the best I could what I thought I could do for the organization. At the end of my interview, I said, I do need to preface all of this with, I know nothing about Route 66 at all. And I was like, I just dug my hole, right? So about 18 minutes later, they called me and they said, we want to offer you the job. We're so happy you know nothing about Route 66. And I was like, what? So March, I believe it was March 2nd, 2 weeks before the stay-at-home orders came into place, I had taken over as executive director. We had an office in the Hilton. If you've been in the Hilton, that second level that kind of looks like a spaceship, that's where we were at. And I was working with a gentleman who had also applied for the position of executive director and didn't get it. So the first week was a little, rough, but we quickly realized we're very, very different, but those two things complemented each other perfectly. When I started at the Byway, I think I was in the office for 10 days. Then I ran the organization out of my basement for 18 months. Jeff lives in Lincoln, I live in Chatham. That's just what we did. I did go to the office quite often, and everything at the office was paper, everything. There was no database. There was a Facebook page, but that was about it. Excel spreadsheets for financing. I mean, you name it, it was all paper. So very early on, I realized this organization is not reaching the traveler, right? This organization is not communicating with the traveler that's out there. And that was evident simply because nobody was ever reaching out to us. Nobody was ever emailing us or calling us. So the Byway is very unique in the fact that we are a 501c3 nonprofit. We receive funding from the Federal Highway Administration, and then the bulk of my funding comes from the Route 66 license plates that are out on the road in Illinois. So if you don't have a specialty plate, I'm going to plug that and say we would love for you to get one of those. But we are actually the largest license plate program in the state, simply because we were one of the first ones to be put into place. So after being at the Byway for a couple months, I realized I have my work cut out for me. We worked to create a database in which we could communicate not only with the businesses along the route and the communities, but also the traveler, the people that want the information, that want to know what to do and see along Illinois Route 66. If you go onto Facebook and type in Route 66, the amount of pages and groups that you will find is going to just blow your mind. So quickly I did that when I first started, and I'm like, how are we gonna stand out? How are we going to get people to see us above everybody else? How are people gonna know that we are that organization that they should be reaching out to and asking questions and things like that? So quickly we started asking for emails and just building a massive database of emails. And social media is wonderful for us. Facebook in particular, and some Instagram. We had some other avenues. We did TikTok for a little while. We aren't doing it right now simply because I'm not 22 and I don't know how to make a TikTok. So we've really focused on Facebook though, because we find the most interaction there. We find the most people engaging with us there. Our database that we have grown to, I think we're up to around 20,000 names that we email regularly, has been a wonderful way for people to explore 66. We send itineraries, we have a weekly newsletter that we put out to them, and they're communicating back with us. And we still get lost in the flow sometimes, but I think that's the downfall of Facebook, right? Because everybody's creating these groups. We do work very hard to be active within those groups. So a lot of the marketing and advertising I learned when I was younger, and none of it is anything I use now, because we don't necessarily have to get the traveler. The travelers are there. They're there. They're wanting to be out on the road. They are just looking for the information. So we have found that engaging within some of those groups has really been beneficial for us. My organization is it's overseen by a board of directors, about 10 people. 3 of the larger tourism bureaus are on my board of directors, and that is Heritage Corridor, which is up north, Visit Springfield, which is obviously here, and then Rivers and Routes, which is down south. A lot of people ask me, how are you able to get all of this information out to the travelers? Well, our budget is this big, so we have to be very creative. I have to work through my CBB directors, use some of their lines of communication. Amy is I would say, yeah, you, Amy. I jokingly tell people, like, you know, Amy is employed with the Byway, but she's not employed with the Byway.
Lots of people say that.
Yeah. Well, you do that to yourself, actually. But I have relationships like that with all of the tourism bureaus up and down the route, which really make it easy to then communicate additionally. Route 66 is a living, breathing road. People get on the route, people take, you know, the day trips, the week trips, 3-week trips. One thing that really hit me when I started was the lack of communication between the other 7 states. So there is one of me in some capacity in the other 7 states. Now, here in Illinois, we're very lucky. We're the only organization out of the 8 states that has paid staff, focusing solely on Route 66. Arizona has some paid staff, but they work out of their tourism department, right? So, you know, they are getting funding from the state, and while that tourism director kind of looks over Route 66, they're also marketing the Grand Canyon and other things like that. Here in Illinois, if it's not evident, we're very lucky that we have a paid organization to focus solely on the route. We work very hard to get international travelers to get our information. Pre-COVID, and we don't have numbers yet after COVID, but pre-COVID, 40% of the Route 66 traveler was from overseas, which is mind-blowing, right? Just absolutely mind-blowing. Netherlands, Australia, Germany, Some of the three biggest, I would say, overseas areas that focus on Route 66. They have organizations. They have their own organizations in their countries that focus on Route 66. We are viewed as the American dream, and this is what America is all about. This is how America was built, right? So to have those connections overseas, again, not something I'm used to. Like, when I was marketing here in Springfield, you know, we weren't marketing overseas. I certainly wasn't marketing a road to a bunch of people who, by the way, usually have 5 to 7 weeks vacation, and they choose to come here. And they spend the entire 5 to 7 weeks on the route. And I can tell you, I just drove from Springfield to Williams, Arizona, and it took 4 days. We saw about 10% of what was out there. I can't imagine doing the whole route in 1 week. And so many Americans do that, simply because they're tied to their schedules, right? It should take you a week to get through Illinois. It should take you a week to get from Chicago down to St. Louis. We by far have the most marketable miles. We have 3 alignments. We have over 420 miles of 66. And we focus on those small businesses these are, these are the reasons the road is what it is, are all of these small businesses up and down the route. So at the Byway, we are a member organization, so businesses are members, my CBBs support me and are members, and the individual communities are members. The one thing we help our small business owners do is communicate what they have to the traveler. The traveler, I think we've done a really good job growing our following and communicating one-on-one, because my inbox just never stops. There are people all the time reaching out. Can I get additional itineraries? Can I get this? Can I get that? But we help our small business owners get people to their business. One of the other things I started shortly after I took over the Byway, we had a social media manager, we had 2 other contractual positions. I cut all 3 of them. My assistant at the time, he was like, what are you even doing? Like, we can't do this stuff ourselves. I said, well, we're wasting money on stuff that you're gonna have to learn how to do. Jeff was very old school, didn't do a lot of techie things. And one of the first things I put into place was a mobile app. I did leave little cards back there. That is a free mobile app. We are the only state that offers this. And I'm really excited that this has taken off in the way it has. There are lots of apps out there, and most of them you have to pay for. $9 for 21 days, $19 for 14 days. Again, assuming that you're only gonna spend, 14 days out on the route. Our mobile app is free. It highlights all of our members up and down the route. But the nice thing about our mobile app is we are able to communicate through it. So if there's something going on, we can send push notifications to our mobile app, and it will alert the traveler who has downloaded our app. We also allow all of our members free use of the app. So right now I'm working with Visit Bloomington Normal, and they're gonna be doing a scavenger hunt in June. And they will be using our mobile app and putting their entire scavenger hunt within the mobile app. So when people are traveling through Bloomington Normal, they're gonna be able to click on challenges and see what challenges are going on in that area. Events populate on our mobile app. So if you are using our mobile app and you are traveling through Carlinville on it's actually gonna be June 26th of 26, which is their zip code, 62626, they're having a huge celebration in Carlinville. If you're gonna be in that area using our mobile app, that event will populate for you. That event will give you a notification and say, hey, you need to come and enjoy time, at this festival. And we do that all the way up and down the route. We have analytics on our mobile app, and January 3rd, we saw a 70% increase in the amount of people that downloaded the mobile app. 3 days into the Centennial. We have been planning for the Centennial. Well, I've been planning it since I started at the Byway, right? I saw it in the future, and I knew we needed to focus on it. But a lot of other people waited until January 1st to start planning for the Centennial, which has created a communications nightmare when it comes to our organization. I actually had put an out of office in place. Well, I wasn't out of office. It had to be an out of office that said, please allow me 48 hours to get back to you. Because the number of emails and the number of requests that we're getting, not from travelers, because those are the people that are my priority, but people that are kind of wanting to jump on the bandwagon and get a little bit of Route 66 and the money that comes with it. Julie mentioned I sit on the Illinois Centennial Commission. Tim Butler was the first representative to put that in place in 2019 out of all 8 states. And I will say, and I'm not saying that just because I'm here in Illinois, Illinois leads the way across all the states as far as the Centennial and what we're doing and the commissions that are put into place and the money that the state has pumped into our organization and the state as a whole. I believe we're up to $22 million since 2022 that the state has given to our tourism directors to produce photo opportunities, signage, just all kinds of additional information and photo ops. That's the biggest thing, right? That's what people want when they go out and they're on the route and they're taking a trip on Route 66. The Centennial Commission doesn't have any fundraising capabilities or anything like that, but we are helping organize events for the Centennial. And the Byway is the organization that houses all of that information on our website. For those of you that have nothing to do this afternoon, and if you want to get lost, jump onto our website. It is page after page after page of travel information, information about the businesses along the route, itineraries. We have an interactive map. That interactive map is exactly what you see on our mobile app. So if you're not a mobile app person, you can plan your entire trip with the little bouncing sign that says plan the trip on the bottom of our page. And then you can create and print out your entire itinerary. Our mobile app connects to the database that we put into place when I took over in 2020. Again, everything was paper. We had no information from anybody. So we spent the first year really just reaching out to people on Facebook, sending them links to subscribe and become a member and things like that, travel information. So like I said, our database has really grown to where it is now. Let's see, what else am I missing? The Federal Commission. So there's a Federal Commission in place. And I'm the treasurer of the Road Ahead Partnership. The Road Ahead Partnership is an organization that for the last 14 years has received funding from the National Park Service. And that organization kind of oversees all 8 states, right? There's a representative from every state on the board of directors in some capacity. And really it's just a matter of giving input and sharing information about what's going on in our states. But the Road Ahead is also the driving force behind the Federal Commission. The Federal Commission, I believe President Trump signed at the end of his first term and appointed people here in Illinois. We have Joan Sestak, who she is over at UIS, and Lieutenant Governor Stratton is on that, and then Bill Thomas. Bill Thomas is also the chairman of the Road Ahead Partnership. The Road Ahead Partnership is one other way that we're able to communicate with people outside of our organization. The Road Ahead Partnership has a massive database of travelers, and we're able to pump information through the Road Ahead Partnership for dissemination. There's also a group that I meet, I said there's one of me in every state, so I meet with 7 other people, and we meet on a monthly basis, and we just share what works, what doesn't work, and how best are you reaching out to the traveler. Here in Illinois, we have the most comprehensive visitor guide. I left some back there. Those are our 2025 guides, just so everybody's aware. My 26 guide is currently in production, and it's going to be absolutely mind-blowing. It is 104 pages. We have a professional marketing firm putting it together and making it a collector's piece. I did have to ask several organizations for funds because it's going to be an upwards of about 100,000 to print. We do print roughly 100,000 of them, and we do push about 25,000 of those overseas. We also have an area on our website where people can ask for a visitor guide. They're free of charge, and We send out 200 visitor guides roughly every 20 to 30 days, just kind of depends. The first 2 weeks of January, I think we sent out 450, because again, people are like, oh, it's the Centennial, you know. Trying to think. So other forms of communication that we use, I would say, as I said, social media is probably the biggest one for us. And it's, again, not traditional. We do posts, right? We post a lot, but we spend a lot of time within all of those groups reaching out to people. Our mobile app, our website, wealth of information, and then we just finished a project with IDOT, and we created a brand new Route 66 map that IDOT is producing and disseminating. There was one produced in 1990, and this is going to take that place. And it's going to be an old school, 40-fold map that you put in your glove box, which people are like, glove box, what? Glove box. People have been asking for them. Like, I still have about 15 of the original, and they're gorgeous, but the new ones are just gonna be absolutely amazing. Our standard traveler right now is in upwards of 55 years and older. So one of the things I realized when I took over the byway was people are getting older, people are, passing away, our travelers are going away, right? Because I would say 85% of the people on the route are age 55 plus. So while working with trying to get people to know who the byway is, we also decided that it was important to get into schools, because we need to educate these kids on what Route 66 is. And I thought about it, it just kind of went away, and I didn't think about it anymore, and this was in 2021. And I received an email from my daughter's teacher, and my daughter at the time was in 4th grade in Glenwood. And she had emailed me and asked me if I would come speak to her class about Route 66. And then it dawned on me, oh my gosh, this is what we need to be doing, right? We need to show these kids the Gemini Giant, and we need to show them the big ketchup bottle so they can go home and tell their parents, hey, we want to go see that. The whole thing started because they brought up Route 66 in class, and my daughter raised her hand and said, my mom owns Route 66. And the teacher goes, well, no, honey, probably not. She was arguing with the teacher. My mom owns it. She does. She goes, Google my mom's name right now. She Googled my name, and of course, up pops some interview that I had just done. And she's like, see, I told you she owned it. And I just love that story because it really kind of launched us into the next wave of traveler, right? Are those kids. So I'm currently working on some curriculum with none other than Ace Sign Company. I know, don't even figure out how that works. But Ace is basically a partner that I couldn't live without. They do absolutely everything for me, from graphic design to educational curriculum. But one of the things we have created that we'll be launching here in the coming months is a character named Simon. Simon the Sputnik, actually. If any of you remember the Sputnik sphere that was at the top of the Bel Air Motel on 6th Street. Ace Sign Company saved that. It's currently in their museum, but we created Simon. And actually, I shouldn't say we, let me back up. So I wanted to do all of this kid stuff, right? I'm currently finishing up the coloring book and educational curriculum. I walked into Ace Sign Company one day for one of my meetings, and they said, we have something we want to show you. We have no idea what we want to do with it. We just think it's really cool. And I turn the corner, and here's this little guy, Simon the Sputnik. He has hands, he has feet, he has a personality. There's actually a video that talks about him. And they're like, well, I know it's stupid, right? What do you think? And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, this is what I need. I need him. And they're like, what are you talking? I said, I need something to engage the younger traveler. So Simon was born. Simon will start taking travels up and down Route 66. He'll meet Mr. and Mrs. Corndog. He's gonna meet the Gemini Giant. We plan to introduce him outside of Illinois so he can meet the blue whale of Catoosa. But this is a non-traditional form of advertising. If you get these kids engaged, their parents are just gonna be like, I mean, obviously the hope is that they're gonna say, all right, let's go on road trips. But one of the things we're doing is, kids have cell phones, right? Kids' faces are in cell phones all the time. We're gonna have an area on our mobile app that will allow the kids to find Simon while they're on a road trip with their parents. Simon will be placed throughout the state. Simon will coincide with the coloring book I have produced. And while the kids are in the back seat, they're not asking when they're gonna stop. Are we almost there? They're engaged and they're learning. The coloring book gives details about every stop. Right now we have about 21 stops that will be included in the coloring book, in the mobile app, and that Simon will be highlighting. The Simon character goes along with our curriculum, and one of the people at ACE is the one helping me with the curriculum. I don't know how he has the knowledge or what have you, but we're gonna be testing some of it up in Morton, Illinois. Our thought process is schools on 66, right? Let's start there first, because it's easy to talk about what you have in your backyard. So I think one of our first schools will be Ball Elementary in Chatham. Route 66 goes right around there. If any of you have taken your kids to that school, it's horrible. The road is terrible, especially if you come off of East Lakeshore Drive. However, that stretch of road is on the National Historic Register, and there's really not much that they can do or will do. We want them to stop paving stuff, right? We want that original road to be in place. So we'll start there with the kids. Unfortunately, I was hoping to have a lot of this launched prior to the Centennial, but I think it's, as we sit here and we talk internally, I think launching it towards the end of the year is okay, because we need to give people something to look forward to, right? Because what happens after this 100 years? I jokingly say to everybody, I just said it to a few people, I cannot wait till January 1st, 2027. Like, you have no idea. I have never wanted a year to go by so fast in my life as I do this year. And it's not because I don't enjoy my job. It's because this year is going to be absolutely amazing. There are about 10 celebrations up and down the route. Again, all organized by other entities other than the Byway, but they reach out to us and ask us for marketing help and just simply getting that information to our travelers. Our weekly newsletter, it does that. It goes to a little over 20,000 people, and every time we put a newsletter out on Thursdays, it has events that are going on this upcoming weekend. Because while we really want to engage with the traveler, we know we just have locals in some of the areas on that newsletter, and they're able to see what's going on in their communities. I'm trying to think, I don't know how I am on time. Oh, okay, I've about got 30 minutes. All right. I'm trying to think if I have forgotten anything that I wanted to share, other than our advertising is just so non-traditional. Our communications are so non-traditional, which, if any of you know me, know that that's fantastic. I prefer to just kind of do what works. Not because we've always done it this way, but like, this works. And the way we do things, it works. Our partners throughout the state, they really help us. They really support everything that we do, and that allows us to get all this information out past the Illinois borders into, overseas. We do not have the money to do a lot of the, they do, and Amy, I'm drawing a blank right now. When you guys go overseas and you do all of those, the what? Yeah, sales missions. Thank you. I don't do sales missions, so that's why I don't know what the term is. But our tourism directors, they do that. They go overseas. They take all of our information and also disseminate it. But then they also meet with tour operators that are planning all of these tours, to come to the United States just to travel 66. As I mentioned, I own a business down in Girard, and over the last 3 weeks, I think we've seen about 6 or 7 people from overseas already, and it's January. I wish they would have waited till April or May, because it's a little cold, but it's an exciting time for Route 66, and I tell everyone it's the best job I've ever had, and it's a job that every day I go to work, I don't feel like it's a job, because how great is it? If you follow me on Facebook, you're like, oh my God, all you do is eat. All you do is take pictures. All you do is post about small businesses, right? Because that's all because that truly is what Route 66 is all about, the small business along the route. So that's about what I've got. I'm happy to answer questions, even if they're not related to communications or if it's just related to 66. And yeah.
Sorry, I got here late, so maybe you said this, but so how do you explain the international interest?
So the international interest started quite some time ago. And, you know, think about things that you like overseas, right? Like, why would you go to Italy, right? Because you want to see that Italian culture. Outside of the United States, Route 66 has been marketed as true America, right? This is what once was. The movie Cars is a perfect example, right? So that movie, 55, has bypassed all of these small towns, and so many of our small towns have kind of fallen by the wayside. But I think overseas, things are so much different there than they are here. And for our traveler overseas to kind of go through all these small communities and talk to people and learn about the business, talk to the owners, I just think there's something attractive. A lot of us, we've grown up with that, right? I mean, some people are like, what do you mean Route 66 is a road trip? Like, I drive Route 66 every day. Yeah, but there's so much more than it being just a road. And I think that it really speaks to, you know, what built America, how our small towns started, you know, the towns of Girard and Verdun, you know, Elkhart, these were once booming communities because Route 66 drove through there and that was the only way in or out of the town. So it's still kind of mind-blowing because I would probably safely say obviously approaching the Centennial, I bet we're probably gonna be at a 50-50 split between international and people that live here in the United States, but I don't see that we're going away anytime soon. Yeah.
Is there one big main celebration that's happening at some point, or it's just all the small ones?
So one of the things that has been difficult for Route 66 is there's never been that one organization. The Road Ahead Partnership does a really good job, right? But there's never been that one organization that oversees all the route, plans everything. So you now have 8 separate entities trying to work together collectively to have an event. The Road Ahead did put out an RFP about 6 or 7 months ago, and there are 5 celebrations all taking place on April 30th in 5 cities across 66. If you go to our website, there is some detailed information about the event here in Illinois. April 30th, the kickoff event will be in Springfield, Missouri. They actually paid to be the main hub, but it is going to be a simulcast, kind of like Ryan Seacrest on New Year's. They're going to simulcast the other 4 locations with this one large location. April 30th is when the telegram was sent back in, I believe, 1925 that is naming Route 66 an actual highway. So that's where that April 30th came from. That will be the largest event across all 8 states, but again, not all 8 states are participating. Here in Illinois, our large event will be November 11th, 2026. November 11th is actually the birthday of Route 66, along with Veterans Day. We will be having a huge conference and celebration up at Motorheads, and it's going to be open to the public. It'll be a ticketed event, but we'll have a Veterans Day presentation that day. But I picked November 11th for and the Byway is overseeing that event because our small businesses, they can't have an event in April. They can't attend an event in June. They can't come to the conference in August because there's going to be so many people traveling the route. So we decided to be the last date of the year. This way my members can come. They can be confident they can close their business down and attend for the day, along with anyone in the public.
How difficult was it for you to do the mobile app and populate with all the information and all of that?
So I found a company, we interviewed several companies actually, and we landed on Visit Widget. They're out of Texas, and if anyone is ever looking to do a mobile app, I would call them. They're absolutely phenomenal. But it wasn't hard. What was hard was creating that database from scratch. scratch, right? Anytime I've ever walked into an organization, a database is there, right? It's there, you just gotta learn how to do it. We had nothing. So before we could even start with the mobile app, we had to populate that database. And the first way we started doing that was turning all of our membership dues and sign up electronically, that we're now capturing people's information. Then we quickly launched an online store, and we have a store where you can buy Route 66 merchandise. We capture everybody's information. The mobile app, like I said, is businesses, communities, things like that. I would say from start to finish, it was probably a 6-month process, but Visit Widget is pretty fantastic. Again, a lot of legwork at the start because they had nothing to tap into. I remember my first meeting, they're like, okay, well, just give us access to your database. I was like, yeah, well, we don't have one. I'm like, I've got a pile of papers, you know? And they're like, yeah, no, you're gonna have to figure something out. So we had already been working with Neon One, and they work only with nonprofits. So if any of you are in nonprofits and need a database, Neon One CRM is simply amazing. Very affordable, very user-friendly, and we can integrate donations, we can integrate, it has our store, and just kind of houses everything, and allows us to designate members, non-members, businesses, individuals, families, things like that.
I just wanted to say I'm so glad you're engaging the younger audiences. I have a son who goes to Ball Elementary, so I'm very excited you're starting there.
Yep.
Have you thought about working with like any social media influencers, or what's your traditional media plan to like get out the message about this?
So it'll fall a lot on our tourism directors because they're the ones with the money. We don't have the money, right? So we'll own Simon will be ours, but we will ask our tourism directors to help us kind of disseminate that. I'm working with Storyteller Studios. I just met them, and I've got some funding, and we're going back and forth trying to decide if we're going to highlight a couple businesses, or we're gonna highlight the byway, but we'll put the framework together. We'll put all the stories and lay out everything as it relates to Simon, but really our tourism directors are gonna have to be the ones to help us, like they are with just about everything that we do, because again, we don't get any state money, any of the grant money, right? I get the license plate money, but we cannot get anything else. So that $22 million, if I got any of it, I had to beg my tourism directors to give me some. So, but that's why, you know, while we have the newsletter and our database and things like that, really big things goes out to our bureaus. The experience up at the fairgrounds, while we oversaw that project, we wrote the grants for it, we executed the entire thing. Visit Springfield, Amy, Scott Dahl, they're the ones that are doing the paid advertising on it, right? Because they have that marketing and advertising budgets. And we do things like that throughout the state. This is the largest project we've ever done like that, just shy of $2 million. And it landed at the fairgrounds because that's Route 66, right? That's Route 60, Peoria Road is Route 66. So it was actually presented to us in a way that the Tourism Bureau came to me 8 days after I started and said, hey, we got this great idea, but we can't do it because it'll never get done because of all the red tape, right? We all know the red tape that holds up any city entity, things like that. And they were like, it'd be really great if you guys did it, because we didn't have any red tape. The only people I had to get to approve it was my board of directors. So they provide the money and the funds, and we run it through us. And we've got something really, really exciting going out at the fairgrounds sometime in the next, I think our deadline is April 1st. So be sure to be watching avenues for that. It is gonna have something to do with corn dogs. So I hope you guys will all be on the lookout for that. It's exciting and engaging for the kids. And if you've never been out to the experience, please go at night. There's $450,000 worth of neon alone out there, and at night it's just simply beautiful, stunning. And that experience has done more for us than we could have ever imagined. It was on a Google commercial during halftime show of the Super Bowl last year, and we just received a phone call from Good Morning America. Sounds like they'll be doing some broadcasting there on July 4th to kick off America 250, but also celebrate the please take a look out there if you haven't, and take your kids, because it is an educational experience, and your kids will then say, hey, let's take a road trip. Yeah?
I'd just like to add, I love that you're doing kind of these engaging photo opportunities as well. So we're a big road trip family, and like all of those Route 66 signs where the kids can get in and do those, like we have 4 or 5 collected, and it's just cool to see, you know, when we were at Bloomington or Girard or just different places that we've gone kind of along the route. And a couple months ago, well, it was probably a year ago now, we were in Oklahoma City, and we were surprised. We were on a tour, and it was about half of the tour was international, and it was just interesting to again hear their stories, because again, you know, we're relatively excuse me, local, and to just hear these people who are spending 3, 4, 5 weeks
insane.
on their
Yeah.
main vacation for a family.
Yeah. Those monuments that we call them, and some of the other photo opportunities, while that's not normal marketing and advertising, it works really well for Route 66, you know. I bought that business in Girard, and Girard has been a pretty quiet community for quite some time. When the coal mines left, and they bypassed, and people were taking Farmersville to Girard, so many things happened down there. And I'll never forget when I brought the monument to them and said, we'd like to put this downtown. They're like, why? No, we don't want, what do you? And I'm like, listen, you're not gonna believe the number of people that would normally fly through the four-way stop, not fly, but go straight through the four-way stop and not even turn onto the square. And I would say when I'm down at the restaurant every day, I mean, car after car after car. In the summer, people are waiting in line to take photographs, you know, with these monuments. And there's, I would say there's about 20 of them in the state, you know, and they've done more than we could have ever imagined that they do, you know. Same thing with some of the totem poles. If any of you have seen the totem poles that have gone up, Chatham just got one, I believe Sherman got one. You know, it's people stop, they get out, they scan the QR code, they take a photograph with it, and sometimes they don't get back in their car right away, right? They walk across the street to, you know, my restaurant and spend money there because they just got out of the car. And that's the purpose behind all of those, you know, structures you see up and down the route. So. One other thing I want to share, the official start sign for Route 66 is right outside the Art Institute. Has been there for years. It's stolen, replaced. Recently, the city of Chicago has passed a few ordinances, and the new starting point for Route 66 is going to be on Navy Pier, right outside Harry Carey's. Actually, I was on a phone call, and we're going to be helping Harry Carey's and Navy Pier with a dedication. It'll probably be on opening day for baseball. I think that's like March 20th, March 21st, but they were in communications with the people in Santa Monica who did the exact same thing. They moved the end sign 1.4 miles. Well, in Chicago, we're moving it 1.5 miles. They are now able to market together peer-to-peer events, drive peer-to-peer, right? And Navy Pier is just one of those places that I think everybody, while it's not technically on 66, needs to experience. And Harry Carey grew up on Route 66 in St. Louis, I found out. I actually was having a conversation with the owner of Harry Carey's, and I was like, well, I'm a Cardinals fan. You know? He's like, that's okay. He's like, you know, remember, he was there at some point, and he grew up in St. Louis. So pretty cool connections there, but I'm excited to see that launch as well. It'll be something big. So.
Any other questions?
Thank you.